If you ever want to see your sissy widow Froggy again, you gotta play my game.
Twisted Metal Small Brawl may be the best car combat game you've never played. Twisted Metal Small Brawl released in 2001 for the PlayStation 1, which is not a typo. Not only did this game release after the PlayStation 2 had graced store shelves the world over, but it did so even months after Twisted Metal itself had already made the leap to the next generation with Twisted Metal Black. In more ways than just that, Small Brawl was as different from Black as a car combat game could possibly be. While Black was overwhelmed by a suffocating darkness, Small Brawl basked in a delightful, childlike whimsy. Black featured a roster of full-size death machines, meanwhile Small Brawl dealt with remote-controlled cars. Calypso here is not some mysterious supernatural figure breaking a bunch of demented and deranged monsters out of an asylum. He's Billy Calypso, a neighborhood bully making the other kids compete in his game. The levels are not dilapidated examples of a world falling apart inside the mind of a psychotic clown. They are just typical suburban venues like backyards, kitchens, and high school football fields. Weapons are not missiles cutting through the night air like neon knives, but are bottle rockets and fireworks harmlessly striking their surroundings. Being a PS1 title, the speed the game is capable of running at is limited. Compared to Twisted Metal Black's frenetic and blistering pace that feels like someone is holding fast forward through a nightmare, Small Brawl feels like a soothing stroll around a Saturday morning cartoon, for better or worse.
It's me again, the Twisted Metal 2012 announcer. Here to tell you that you clicked on this video. Subscribe to Drew Desidue, or I'll remove all the toilet paper from your home when you least expect it. Taco Tuesday will become your apocalyptic downfall.
Even the way they were received could not have been further apart. Where Twisted Metal Black was universally praised by critics and fans alike, Small Brawl earned a paltry 51 score on Metacritic. But game reviewers are icky and their ratings are meaningless. That's why we're diving into Twisted Metal Small Brawl ourselves. I want to see if this game truly deserved to be as overlooked as it was. Is Twisted Metal Small Brawl underrated and overhated? And a quick note before we begin, I had the absolute pleasure of playing this game for the first time on a Discord stream where I was under the supervision of Small Brawl's creator, Dave Goodrich, who has their own YouTube channel that I dearly hope you check out. They helped me with some tips here and there so that I didn't get completely lost, so please subscribe to Dave Goodrich. For many years, I was told by countless so-called fans of the series that Small Brawl was this inferior, forgettable game that I would not miss much by skipping, especially when held up to Black, which had overshadowed Small Brawl from the moment it popped into existence. Since I had never played it until preparing for this video, I had no reason to disagree. But now that I'm armed with the experience of actually playing this game, my opinion is now bricked up and ready to go. So let me make this clear now. Twisted Metal Small Brawl might be the best Twisted Metal to come out for the PlayStation 1, if not the entire series. And this video is where I hope I can tell you why I'm not exaggerating all that much. This game has convinced me that to not like it is to be insecure in your own maturity. Because the biggest complaint I have heard for Small Brawl is that the setting and tone are too childish and that playing it would be unbecoming for such a big boy grown-up man. Real men play Twisted Metal Black, right? Everyone knows a real man's soul is this yawning abyss for which no light nor merriment may escape, lest they emerge hollow and corrupted. It's all just nonsense. This game rules. From top to bottom, it embodies in perfect order what Twisted Metal should be. A thoughtful, engaging car combat experience set in a world that is creatively realized and a joy to behold. So what if it's cleverly packaged as a bunch of neighborhood kids playing with RC cars? Twisted Metal is already a toy. It's an arcade action video game. The cars aren't real, the world they exist in is virtual. So what if the cars have little antennas? The concept is unchanged. You press buttons on a controller and blow shit up. What changes if the virtual world that gets explored is something unique and only just so happens to not be the ocean of darkness lurking in the hearts of men, but instead is actually fun, lighthearted, colorful? Do you really need your game to have hair on its chest to be enjoyed? This is not to take anything away from Twisted Metal Black though. Anyone who has been on my channel for any amount of time knows that Twisted Metal Black is my favorite game in the series, but that doesn't mean there can't be room on the podium for a game that is the polar opposite in terms of tone, world, and characters. But that also isn't to say that Small Brawl is just this innocent romp through a G-rated episode of Paw Patrol or whatever. This is still Twisted Metal, and there's an edginess to this game. It's just more silly and juvenile than Black. The endings have a surprisingly high body count, with these young characters suffering all manner of cartoon whoopsies, such as getting eaten by a giant mutant frog, being strapped to the grill of an ice cream truck in the midst of a 5-star police chase, and being the first strike in what certainly ended up being a global nuclear war that will make more giant frogs to eat even more people. Perusing the roster on tap for this game is to find child depictions of our familiar cast. In total, there are 16 playable vehicles in Small Brawl, most of which are returning characters for the series. New vehicles include Mime, a small car that mimics the special weapon of the nearest opponent, Piecemeal, the final boss who also mimics the special of other vehicles, and Trapper, who is a replacement for Minion, likely as a result of its effort to appeal to children. Each of those boss or unlockable vehicles are all unique to Small Brawl and feature little to no character information. Vehicles making their return are Outlaw, controlled by Officer Roberts, who wants justice for the neighborhood kids. Hammerhead, driven by a teenager of the same name who wants to be a rock star. Slam, piloted by the oldest and biggest kid in the tournament, who wants revenge on Billy Calypso, who destroyed his treehouse. Shadow, handled by Mortimer, a nerdy fella on the hunt for his frog friend. Spectre, possessed by a shy kid wearing a sheet, and known only as Spectre, who just wants information about his father. Sweet Tooth, headed by our favorite clown Needles, who just wants a little ice cream. Thumper, with the duo of Vinny and Bruce behind the remote, hoping to win a new sound system in the contest. Twister, guided by a young girl named Twister, who is described as not the brightest bulb in the pack, but a damn good driver anyway. And just like that 90s video game for the Atari with that little electrician dude, Mario the Groundhog, I think his name was, just like them, they want to go fast. Warthog, commanded by the JROTC kid, who goes by Warthog 2 and has waged war on Calypso. Mr. Grimm, a kid who was way ahead of the modern-day obsession with spooky season, and wants to go to a world where it never ends. Darkside, which has little driver information, but is unlockable and said to be controlled by Jimmy Ash, who may or may not be related to Mr. Ash from Twisted Metal 1. Axel, who was another unlockable vehicle with not much driver information, as the story was cut for its potential to be insensitive to people with disabilities. It featured a young Axel in a wheelchair who would wish for the ability to walk should he win the tournament. Calypso would twist that wish so that Axel received robot legs controlled by Calypso. The ending was completed but never made it into the game, and now lives on YouTube for your viewing pleasure. Axel can also be seen briefly in the opening cinematic, being kicked down a hill by Calypso. Somehow that wasn't considered insensitive. And finally, the vehicle I chose for this playthrough, Crimson Fury, and its driver Agent Stone, who fancies himself as a kid James Bond. He's my favorite, I don't care what you say. James Bond kicks ass. Let's just hope the game can put enough tuchus in front of me to be kicked, because my tango with Twisted Metal 2 has left my mind in ruin and rubble. But with ashes comes rebirth. Today, I play a Twisted Metal game designed for kids as I restore my faith in this franchise. The first level brings us to Playground Peril, a level that brilliantly introduces us to not only the vibrant world this game hopes to show off, but also the gameplay itself and how it empowers the player to explore and interact with their environment. On the surface, it may seem like a simple playground with nothing of note, but I quickly discovered how almost everything here can be interacted with in some way. The seesaw will teeter and totter as the weight of your car drives over it. The little kid minding his own business on the merry-go-round just outside the map can have his brains absolutely stupefied by the sheer g-force of a single missile making contact with him. This weird little duck can be shot at, rewarding the player with additional weapons. If there's anything on the swing set that you would like to have for yourself, you can shoot it and it will hook it up for you, including Axel, who was unlocked here. On top of all the small clutter objects that can be destroyed as you speed around the battleground, taking down opponents. The gameplay and concept is largely unchanged from every other Twisted Metal game. I would consider the button configuration and inputs to be closer to Twisted Metal Black, as the advanced attacks like freeze, shield, jump, and rear fire are all mapped exactly as they were in the big boy grown-up Twisted Metal, which means finally there is a PS1 Twisted Metal game where the jump command is not a 3-button combination, but a single press of both shoulder buttons, the way God intended. For your weapons, you have your standard Twisted Metal arsenal, with your homing missiles, fire missiles, and power missiles offering different levels of homing versus power. As a missile has more power, it tends to have less homing ability, so homing missiles pack little punch, but good luck dodging them. Fire missiles hit a little harder but are easier to miss with, and power missiles offer the most damage but have no homing whatsoever. There are also Roman candles that I think are meant to be used as speed missiles, as they fire quickly but are not especially powerful. They look kinda neat and bounce around in a fun way. There are napalm balloons that can be lobbed at enemies and set them on fire. They have decent damage and some homing, but not quite as controllable as the gas cans from Twisted Metal Black. There are ricochets that glide along the ground and bounce off walls, and remote mines that can be placed and detonated at will. The UI is stylized and simple, with your energy, turbo, and health represented by batteries, as you might expect for RC cars. Finding the corresponding battery pickup will replenish the bars, green for health and red for turbo. with the blue energy battery regenerating on its own over time. Since this is the Twisted Metal game that I have had literally just played for the first time in preparation for this video, it took a bit to acclimate to the controls and levels, but both are intuitive and well laid out, so it didn't take long for me to take out the enemies and fill the air with the smell of burning plastic as countless choking hazards rained down from every direction, ready for some disgruntled groundskeeper to collect them.
My first act will be to kill the whole lot of you and burn you turn to cinders! Mike's on. I know it's on!
I got my wits about me by zooming around the map with Crimson Fury, whose speed is usually unmatched in every game he appears in, and that's no different here. I experimented with the seesaw, whose physics wizardry continued to escape my understanding. Not willing to be shown up by a plank of wood, I just gave up and left, and found a new best friend for Crimson Fury in this springy, smiling duck. He talks not with his words, but his energy as he bounces around. "Allow me to translate for you," he says.
"Subscribe to Drew Desadoo. It's the only way to free me from this hellish contraption. The spring, oh God, the spring, it hurts so much. I miss my home planet, please. Drew said I'm stuck here until you hit that subscribe button."
He's right, you know. Anyways, I finally started to do some combat in this car combat game by getting overly aggressive, using this car that historically has had little armor, by planting myself in the grill of Darkseid, letting loose a barrage of colorful hell until they felt the need to vacate the wrath of my flaming paper airplane special. Warthog was the first to be booted back to the lobby though, and Warthog in this game is a little bit different than previous entries. Instead of the military Humvee or tank style of Warthog's past, they appear in this game as sort of a rebranded Grasshopper, which is a low armor buggy that everyone hates using. The Crimson Fury Air Force was sent out on a mission to finish what we started on Darkseid, leaving Axel as the lone enemy. But before I could dismantle that two-wheeled joke, I spent some time driving around the map to see what else I might have missed up to that point. This survey led me to give the smiling duck a little pat on the rump as I make my way back to my old nemesis, the balanced plank of wood. I conquered the seesaw this time, no longer fooled by its trickery, and it gave me a nice remote mine to use later. I checked out the upper level of the playground, but not much could be found there, some much needed health, but otherwise a pretty lackluster area compared to the excitement everywhere else. This map really is just a well-crafted appetizer for what's to come in later levels, giving you the subtle nod that every environment is overflowing with fun and creative details and things to mess around with. As I sat back and watched a helpless playground patron succumb to low-budget astronaut training, Axel decided that he would become a cautionary tale for fireworks safety and just blew himself up. Fireworks are no joke, kids. Take it from Axel. No matter how much power you have, it means nothing if you act even dumber. That moves us along to the second level, Carnoball, which is a difficult map to summarize. It's a room within someone's house that looks like a child was tasked with designing a torture chamber, complete with a swinging axe guarding the center mouth ramp to the upper area, a whirling buzzsaw playing peekaboo, a Roomba wearing a skeleton as a hat, a spinning half pipe that can't be looped despite my best efforts, and a secret area that can be accessed if you push a hidden door, which I didn't realize at first. I only found that room because I bothered the Skelly Roomba and followed him to his hidey hole, which is the one exception to my personal rule of never following a spooky skeleton to a secondary location. This map also has more color in its wallpaper than the entirety of Twisted Metal Black. It's rather simple in layout, but flows nicely from section to section. And with the added flavor of the many hazards and things to avoid, it makes for a very solid arena that puts the combat front and center. With only 4 enemies to deal with in a fairly tight space, the action is high and the battle quick. I focused on Slam first as the biggest and scariest opponent on the field. I worked in a decent combo of freeze, remote mines, and power missiles, but watched every bit of my credibility as a Twisted Metal gamer vanish as I missed an astonishing 4 consecutive power missiles. But you know what they say, you miss 100% of your shots whether you take them or not, so why bother? I think Benjamin Franklin said that. Luckily my paper airplanes were refueled and loaded and got the job done. Weapons in this game are plentiful both in the number of pickups available on each battleground and the amount you receive from each one. The pickups also respawn very quickly, meaning that as long as you stay on the move, you are almost guaranteed to never have an empty inventory. At one point, I somehow acquired 15 power missiles, which would have a total damage output greater than any weapon ever devised by man. Oppenheimer, eat your heart out. But, like the late great Benny Franklin would have wanted, I missed most of them and gave up trying. I found myself frozen and rubbing bumpers with Darkseid, who even as a plastic RC toy, it's still the last thing you want to be stuck in a tight space with. I attempted to get away, the very thing a speedster like Crimson Fury was cheaply manufactured to do, but found out quickly that once Darkseid has a taste for RC flesh, nothing will stand between them and their prey. Their horn blared like a vicious war cry, calling upon strength from its ancestors from Twisted Metal 1 and Black. before slamming into my rear, destroying me instantly and giving me my first death of the run. I begged Mom to buy me a new Crimson Fury, and just like that, I was back in battle. I drove towards Darkside and sunk a paper airplane into their weakened rig, ending them before they could smash me again. Axel and Twister forged an unlikely friendship in the fires of trying to destroy me. They chased me around the upper level before their duo was torn asunder by my fury being crimson as ever. I plunged my little red sports car into Twister, knowing that I had little health remaining. Axel spin-whipped a bunch of fuck-off missiles at me, forcing me to beg Mom again for a new Crimson Fury toy, promising her that I wouldn't ask for anything else the rest of the year. Unboxing my new Crimson Fury, I took some time to explore the map a bit further before giving in to my urges for revenge on Axel. This was the time where I found the secret passage offered by the spooky Roomba. He led me into it before bursting into green flames and disappearing. I emerged out of the hidden door and sent my paper airplanes out to finish Axel and move us on to the next level, Easy Death Oven. We leave that weird playroom and head to the kitchen for another riveting battle. Every appliance and gadget has something interesting going on. From the blender that can be shattered, the stove that can cook your car if your timing is off, a can opener that will tear your lid off if you aren't careful, and there's even a microwave that shows off more of the risk-reward philosophy that the series is built on. There's a health sitting inside the microwave, but going to grab it leaves you vulnerable to an enemy shooting the door, causing it to close and turn the device on, possibly opening up a time portal because I don't know what happens when you put a battery in the microwave. I encountered my first enemy among the tomato cans and traded blows with them because my inventory was stacked, as it tends to always be in Small Brawl. Until I played this game, I always assumed the space behind the fridge was this forbidden plane of existence that no mere mortal may lay eyes on, for their minds will fail to understand and be driven to slack-jawed madness. But turns out it's just a good place for Shadow to have their shit rocked. Something I really feel shouldn't go overlooked on these maps are how open they feel. Combined with the sharp controls, it offers a level of satisfaction to the gameplay that not every Twisted Metal can honestly claim that it has. It seems like there are far fewer invisible walls keeping you from jumping down from an upper level to a lower one. For the most part, you can pretty much go wherever you want, however you want, with a degree of control that is just damn smooth. The cars do feel light and floaty at times, which is expected for a game using RC cars, but it never felt so unwieldy that it distracted me the way that Twisted Metal 2's physics tend to do. It's purely preference which one you prefer, but it works well here in my opinion. For this playthrough, I kept the difficulty on medium, as I'm still getting my bearings on this game, but it did become a tad easy for portions of the game, because even though it's my first time with Small Brawl, I still have hundreds of hours spent with every other Twisted Metal game that give me a pretty solid foundation of skill to rely upon, even in these uncharted waters. Grim and his pitiful health bar had little chance to plead for my mercy, which they would not have found anyway. Before I tackled the last two enemies, I spent a couple minutes shooting various weapons into the plumber's ass, hoping that one of them would trigger a fart powerful enough to blow a hole through the counter behind him. Finally, a fire missile landed square in the crack, and what erupted from under his jeans that struggled to contain his blue-collar dump truck was enough to blast through several layers of wooden-covered encounters, revealing a hidden area where I could unlock Darkside. With the remaining opponents dealt with in the aftermath of the tactical fart nuke the plumber earned after a 25 burrito kill streak, we are brought to the Mini-Golf Mayhem, where we face our first boss battle. Mini-Golf Mayhem uses a mini-golf course, as you might have guessed, as an arena, allowing for some creative liberty in the set pieces and environments, with sections of this map themed as a jungle complete with active volcano, some sort of village with spearmen who can damage you as they bob up and down, and a pyramid. There's also a giant spider that can send you flying if you aren't careful. Each area has a hole in which you can channel your inner Rocket League pro gamer and push one of the many golf balls into it, providing a random pickup when done. This level puts you in against 4 opponents, and when they're defeated, it closes off many portions of the map and sends in the boss known as Trapper. This map is the one that excites me probably the least of the ones I've played so far, which is saying a lot because there is still a lot to enjoy and look at. Playing this game on medium difficulty hasn't really been much of an issue. I'm perfectly fine operating on the difficulty that the developers probably assumed most people would play, but it does seem like this game is on the easier side, which means that Mini-Golf Mayhem and its boss battle was the first time I stumbled upon a real challenge. The first time I got the Trapper, I had just 2 lives after Outlaw tased me. Mom said I couldn't get any more Crimson Fury toys, so from here on out, we'll be using her credit card without her knowledge. Please don't tell on me. While waiting for Trapper to hurry his ass up and fight me, I played a bit of golf. When Trapper did finally show, I made a hasty escape into the mouth of the volcano, and got spat out right next to him and had my ass thoroughly handed to me. Another swipe of Mom's credit card and I was back in action, spawning directly in front of Trapper, who had plenty of ass-kicking left in the tank. I took shelter on top of the pyramid that gave me a perfect vantage point of the map, including a sick chance at a sweet power missile snipe that looked like it should have hit him but didn't do much damage to the big truck. Trapper started his trek towards me and got smacked by the swinging spider, which when combined with my battalion of air support got him into the red. It really seemed like I had a chance here, but that confidence was my downfall. Trapper is not the fella you want to be dragged into a slugfest with. He will win that every time. So I had to go back to the hobby store to re-up on my Crimson Fury stock, and headed back into Mini Golf Mayhem to get payback. This second attempt didn't start great, with Sweet Tooth and Grim each taking me down, but I pushed forward into Trapper with only one life anyway, because giving up just means guaranteed failure. Trying is the first step to succeeding. My courage paid off as I found a rhythm in my approach, as I would take shots at Trapper and run away until the health respawned under the Spearman. A few close calls that led to more pants-shitting terror than I would care to admit were paired with some good strategy, and I eventually overcame the first boss battle and toughest enemy yet. Next up is Meet Your Maker, a lighthearted festival of fun inside our friendly neighborhood butchery, a popular hangout spot among youth these days. Kids just can't get enough of their pig anatomy posters and conveyor belts. It's taking the nation by storm, just like I'm taking this competition by storm. After a brief mishap with the meat grinder that led to Outlaw and I being claimed by the hungry spinning blades, I began a torrential reign of terror on these opponents. Warthog was blasted apart by a barrage of Roman candles after I failed to get them caught in the grinder too. Darkside met a similar fate just moments later, as they got stamped by one of the many level hazards and finished off by me and my Roman candles, which are kinda crazy strong. This level is relatively simple, a lower section with small shelves and nooks to explore for weapons, and an upper level with conveyors dotted with more peekaboo saw blades, all leading to instant destruction at the end with a massive grinder. There's a meat pulverizer thing that crushed Darkside earlier, and massive hunks of meat being trolleyed from one side of the room to the other. With only Slam left, they met me on the lower level, where a few power missiles were all it took to send his little yellow loader to toy hell. Alright, strap on your helmets and secure your balls, because we're off to Gridiron Gore, a battle on a high school football field and the most basic arena this game has to offer. It's essentially a large rectangle dressed up as a football field with yard markers, benches, and a drunk man rumbling around on a lawnmower. Despite its simple concept and appearance, this map does provide a lot of neat touches, like whenever you activate your shield, the crowd will shout, and dispatching an opponent will prompt the audience to cheer you on. The helmets left on either side of the field can be destroyed, allowing you access to some health pickups. Other than that, it's just up to you and the enemies to figure out the rest. This map is sort of like a Diet Holland from Twisted Metal 2. Similar concept, but not as overflowing with enough bullshit to back up even the most battle-tested sewage systems. Twister fell to my Nerf Dart machine guns as they sped into the locker room. I laid the hammer on Hammerhead with a well-placed truck stick. I tossed a go-route fire missile to Spectre, who hauled it in and exploded immediately after. And Shadow ran the alley with me and couldn't take the punishment. With that, let's hit the showers and head to Treetop Rumble, which serves as this game's obligatory rooftops level. Only instead of a battleground hundreds of feet above the city streets and instant death, it's a neat little treehouse with a big trampoline, ready to catch you if you fall off into the center. But if you take a dive off the outer edge, it's game over. Thumper was the first to take such a path when in mere moments they left from the platform, never to be seen or heard from again. This is assembled as the outer ring of a square, featuring some unique interactable objects. On one corner you have a lawnmower, which seems like the wrong place for one of those. Hitting the lawnmower forces it to be turned on and take a lap. One corner has a trapdoor that can be opened and closed at your leisure. There's a dartboard that can give you additional weapons if you manage to actually hit it. There's a box of fireworks that can offer some pretty cool environmental damage output. Darkside and Sweet Tooth both fell into the trapdoor simultaneously without any input from me. They just coordinated some elaborate self-annihilation all by themselves. So with 3 of the 5 enemies just merging with the bottomless void lurking just below the treehouse, all that was left was the lockheads with Warthog and Grim, who were low on health. Warthog presented no threat and just accepted his homing missile fate. Grim was a bit trickier to get a hold of as he played keep away with the kill I needed to move on to the final battle. But after some messing about, my Top Gun paper airplanes found a landing spot on his tiny bike and finished this off without much issue. On to our last stop, Now Slaying, that has a pretty creative boss fight that starts with 4 opponents and upon destroying the first one, will cause the rest of them to float towards the stage in some devilish ritual, and combine together forming the boss proper known as Piecemeal. Piecemeal Piecemeal, who is massive and able to use any special in the game, assuming the vehicle is on the map with it. When you take out a quarter of Piecemeal's health, it will break apart into whatever enemies were left from the beginning portion, and killing one will start the process all over again. Rinse and repeat until all the enemies are destroyed, and Piecemeal is defeated. It's easier said than done because, as said, Piecemeal is enormous, with a bunch of health, and can destroy the seats of the cinema to the point that eventually there is no cover left to hide behind. There are a few things here to give you a chance, including a popcorn cart that can be asked to roll down the ramp and into the stage, opening up a treasure trove for health, turbo, and power missiles. There is also a fire extinguisher on the wall that when shot with a missile will fly off the wall and strike an opponent, sometimes. The times that I've tried, it failed to find Piecemeal and instead just flopped around harmlessly until it was too tired and gave up. The movie screen shows the player's camera for anyone curious. There are a couple of trash cans in the corners of the theater that maybe give weapons. Every time I nudge them with machine guns, they just spit out trash, so I don't know, I didn't really spend much time with those. With the last phase initiated, I had only the last quarter of Piecemeal's health remaining, and decided to close this game off with a sweet fire extinguisher finale. But, as you already know, it just missed entirely and left me to go toe-to-toe with the behemoth myself. But with homing missiles and patience, I had done it. I conquered Small Brawl, and was rewarded with Crimson Fury's ending cutscene, where he confronts Billy Calypso and threatens him at water gunpoint. Calypso laughed in the face of imminent danger before getting mauled by a house cat, who transforms into a murder machine at the slightest touch of water. So in conclusion, Small Brawl is certainly no triumph of gaming the likes of which this earth has never seen before, but it's a high-quality, light-hearted, well-built, creative, and fun experience that suffered from being overshadowed by the more advanced and mature title with Twisted Metal Black. It didn't deserve any of the hate or disdain that it received. Not in the slightest. But being a PS1 game in a PS2 world never gave it the fighting chance that it would have needed to prove itself to the world that it should earn just as much respect as every other Twisted Metal game, if not a little bit more for its trouble. Have a nice day.